the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I'm Nick McDaniel. He's Myron Fancher. How the heck are you, buddy?
With the first pick in the 2025 WWE Draft, Myron select. Hold on. Are we doing that this week?
Wrong week. Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago.
Shit.
So let's first and foremost, let's talk about that a little bit. We're completely out of order in show notes, but I will go ahead and mention this. So part of the reason why we were late is we were going to work on something, and we were talking about the NFL draft. We're talking about like Raw and SmackDown. Like SmackDown's supposed to be going potentially back to 2 hours here in the next month or so, month and a half, give or take, per rumors. And we all know what we think about rumors on the internet at these days and times.
God, this week is the worst ever for rumors.
Yeah. So we're like, hey, they got to be coming up on a draft soon, right? Like they just got to be like because clearly at this point we've blown up the brand split because everybody's just bleeding all over both shows.
It doesn't make any sense. It's like, I know John Cena is on both shows, but he shows up on both shows sometimes. Or is he on both shows? Because Cody Rhodes on one show.
Like, that's kind of the point, right? Like, so John Cena's a SmackDown guy, but he's constantly popping up on a Raw on Netflix because, Netflix probably wants him. But Jey Uso's the Raw champion. So he's always on Raw, so that means Cena shouldn't be there, but he's there. Yeah, it's just it's literally a mess all over the place. So anyway, so the point of all of it was, we were kind of like, hey, why don't we do the draft? Like, we'll do our own mock draft. We're the draft experts, wink, and like do a mock draft and go through. Well, we're going to get to why that didn't happen this week here shortly. One of the topics we are going to discuss. But before we dive into the, to the deep waters here or whatever, we always like to tell you, look, there's lots of stuff. You got to check us out at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. You do get the show early. You do get the show, typically earlier than this week. You got the Tapped In show on time. Tapped Out's running a little behind, but you'll still have it the day before, obviously. We did those interviews last week. The $10 levels, got those ahead of time. So it doesn't matter. The weekly shows at the $5, everything at the $10. Also get those Tapped Out collectibles at the $10 and the $25 levels, excuse me. And we did make the announcement that it was official. So this one was going to be a little bit different. But going forward, to get the collectibles to be eligible for that month, you have to be a paid member on the first of the month at that tier to get it. So you can't sign up on like the 8th or whatever, and then my goal is to have them mailed out by like the 15th of the month, so I can go get connected with that wrestler, get them autographed, and get them sent out or whatever. So
that's one of our OnlyFans. That's what happens when you subscribe to our OnlyFans and have your renew on.
You get them.
Well, sorry, wrong conversation.
So let's first and foremost, if we dive into all the other stuff, let's talk about, obviously, the WrestleMania hangover. Let's kind of like, we both were like, here's the thing. It's been a month at this point. Right. Here's my question. If I speak for you, correct me if I'm wrong. They had so much momentum. We were fired up going into WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah.
And coming out of WrestleMania, I'm like, how did you lose me that fast? Within a month that I'm like,
it's like it was Easter holiday, so you went over to your grandmama's house and you ate all the deviled eggs and you ate the ham to the point you couldn't eat anymore and you were just stuffed. So the last thing you wanted to think about was more food till you had a chance to lay down. And it's only been a month. And it's pay-per-view time again, if I still use my 1980s lingo.
Yeah, so the Backlash PLEs this weekend is what it is. Obviously, look, we'll just start at the top. The headliner is John Cena and Randy Orton. I think we all got excited when we saw Randy Orton come out. Yes. The promos have been good. Look, for the longest time, I felt like this was a one-match card. Like we always talk about this, a two-match card, three-match. They have since added one that I'm interested in. We'll get to that one in a minute.
Oh.
But John Cena, Randy Orton, I was kind of like, hey, I'm all in. But here's your problem. You can't beat John Cena already. Like, it's so soon that you just can't, right?
No. You can't take the belts off him and make Randy 15 because that would. I hate to do wrestling math, but I don't know how you book it because then you'd have to give John an 18 if you're planning on doing.
Pause. I'm going to ask you a question. Have you noticed that Ric Flair's been advertised at places as a 21-time champion now?
Okay.
Yes,
that's Ric Flair. I also know how many midgets Ric Flair slept with because he's bragged about that too.
Yeah.
But I mean, there were 18,000. There were more territories back in the old days than indie wrestling promotions in Georgia. So I mean, you could have got a belt somewhere and then got in a car. Drove
his was all like NWA, WCW / WWF titles. Those are his 21 times.
You're telling me they hired some kind of forensic belticologist to go back through and find Rick's.
That's the story. But anyway, let's get back to the current. So let's talk about, John Cena, Randy Orton. And I'm going to ask you this because, we're like, hey, so you can't beat Cena now. That's a given. But I think we talked about this earlier. There's no way Randy beats him. And my theory was in the beginning when all of this kind of started, I was like, Randy's got to be the end game, right? Like that's got to be the last match because they're so tied together throughout history. Why give? I mean, I understand Backlash is in St. Louis, but other than that poor excuse, like Randy should have been the end, not now, right?
I mean, I need montages, Nick. I need pictures of them together in OVW. Smoky Mountain or wherever the hell they were at the time. I need pictures of these guys and like montages, and I need to remember their history, not just be given what I want right off the bat. It's one of those things where we're recording on Wednesday now, and Friday is the last pay-per-view show before. Is The Rock going to show up?
Okay, so here's the thing. So now every string is pointed because you at one point it was like, hey, we're going to lead to The Rock, right? Like eventually we're getting to The Rock. Bad news, folks. I don't know that we ever – because here's the thing. If Rock couldn't wrestle at Mania because of his movie with Scorsese that they're filming next March, why would he be allowed to wrestle in anything between now and the end of the year?
I mean, why not just make an appearance at Mania? Couldn't he have just walked out and like drawn some booze or something? No, I don't think we're going to get Raw and Backlash unless they're going to surprise us with something totally out of character and blow our minds. But
time will tell. But I'm just I don't know. Here's my thing. John Cena wins because it was just too obvious to go there. Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch. I think this is a no-brainer. Becky Lynch takes that belt off of her, and it's like is your Intercontinental Champion.
I think so, but I mean, what are they doing? I mean, they're finally building first drop the last name. Her name is Lyra, and she doesn't have feathers all over her. There you get a little bit believable. The person that's been coming out on television and got that whoop-ass fight with Becky on Monday night. Yeah, that person. Put her with that new Paul Heyman faction. That would build her. Right now, stall. It's probably going to be Becky Lynch.
Yeah. I'm going to jump this one, and then I'll come back on as far as the notes go. United States Championship, Jacob Fatu, LA Knight, Damian Priest, and Drew McIntyre.
Well, they're
going to be
You're missing Penta. Oh, wait. I'm looking at the match they had at WrestleMania for the same title. It was a 4-way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so just take out Penta, plug in Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre, pull out Finn Balor, and now you've got another 4-way.
Yeah. It's same, by the way, same. Let's just repeat. Fatu ain't losing this belt so soon.
No. He is the Stone Cold Samoan. He is the guy that's going, or I don't know if he's Tongan, but the thing is, he's the guy that's going to hold this belt and be the cool anti-hero for a while. He's already getting tons of cheers.
Oh yeah, we're waiting. Honestly, at this point, we're waiting for Fatu to turn on Solo, and then they'll have a feud, and we'll figure it out from there. Dominik Mysterio versus Penta
should be entertaining. Should be entertaining.
I 100% agree with that statement. Those two, I think, are going to have I wonder if there's a part of Dominik Mysterio that's like, hey, I could do a little bit of this lucha stuff and go out there and try to work with Penta in that style.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, the thing is, Dominik set the stage with him and Penta, and then you transition it over to some of this AAA stuff, which the mind-blowing AAA stuff. Such a headache.
We're going to get there because the match I wanted to here's the thing. Probably the match I'm most intrigued by for Backlash is Pat McAfee versus Gunther. I like the comments that were out there were true. Not the lap, but the not the one where they were face to face, but the promo that Pat cut on the desk. Like, there were a lot of people out there saying Pat McAfee's not even a wrestler, and he cuts a better promo than some of the guys who've been in the wrestling business for a decade.
I don't know what they pay Pat, but it's 100% worth it. This is something. This is the only real thing on this card that interests me, and it's generated by Pat McAfee putting this over. Not a time to a feud to change. Not anything. Gunther comes out and tries to choke Michael Cole. Pat McAfee steps in. Bam, storyline. That would have been stale anywhere other way. But when you do it to Pat McAfee, you draw attention from the NFL community. You draw Pat McAfee's amazing promos. Yeah. Pat McAfee's a wrestler. Pretty good wrestler.
He talks better than most. Let's go with that. He is, if nothing else, he talks better. However, obviously the big story coming around is the surprise happening at Backlash? All the rumors say that it is coming. All of them say it's going to happen. And we're going to finish off the Gunther Goldberg story. This is where Goldberg comes back and we pick up, because, they had that tease last, a while back. So the question is like, is this how we segue into it? Yeah. The big bad bully picks on Michael Cole. Then he takes on a football. Look, I love Pat McAfee, but Pat McAfee's just not the size, and he's not a guy. Look, Pat's promo about underestimating Pat, I'm probably underestimating Pat.
Pat did some amazing stuff in those. He had 2 big matches. He's an athlete.
He wasn't working Gunther.
Point taken.
Yeah. Gunther's going to chop him down, and he better hope that one Bill Goldberg is there to make a save in some form or fashion. That's my take. It is what it is. Look, we know we're getting this match. This match is coming. They didn't tease it for nothing. And they probably teased it just setting the table for Bill Goldberg to start getting back into shape and getting ring shape. Well, let me rephrase because I get it. He's in shape. Getting in ring shape. And then this match is probably happening in,
SummerSlam, Money in the Bank.
Money in the Bank, maybe the Saudi show. I don't know, somewhere in there. We'll see.
They just announced a bunch of dates in Australia too, which this match wouldn't appeal to.
Yeah, but I think it's coming sooner than later. I wouldn't be stunned if it was SummerSlam, but that's a long.
We got the 2-night SummerSlam with Nicki Minaj and Pat McAfee, and sounds great to me, man. I'm in.
So we'll see. But look, hey, let's jump into, you brought up AAA a little bit, and this has been the absolute most unreliable information coming out of anything that we've seen. So everything
unreliable wrestling information.
Yeah. So
which is a whole nother tier.
Every statement, instead of ending with a period or an exclamation mark, has a question mark after it. It's like,
or those dots at the end.
Because dot. Like
the 2 people we trust on this, Nick. I trust Conan. You trust Vari Morales. They're the only people I've seen that have had takes besides the American media takes on the whole thing.
Well, I mean, because it was like, hey, these. So let's back up. This is, by the way, this has not come from either of those 2 people that you just said. It came from somebody else who was like, hey, just so you know, the purchase is still kind of pending. Obviously, it's not official. Listen, at first I was hesitant to believe. But then something they said, I said, check out. And you were like, it does say that. It was like, hey, they said it's the Worlds Collide PLE that they're doing is partnering with WWE. It doesn't say, it's WWE's presents. No, it's like they're partnering. Why? Because they're still 2 separate entities. This is probably not going to be official till the end of Q3.
And TNA talent. they're squizzing in
That's
there.
later show. So we'll get there. A lot of this stuff is still pending. The Q3 is probably when they announce, like, it'll be officially, like, the purchase is done for financial purposes, etc. And so this deal's not done. Like, technically, WWE could get out of it if they want to. Now, I don't think they're going to, because then the rumor came out that AAA's talent, some of them, had signed WWE contracts.
Oh, God. Dave Meltzer, please. Take the car keys away from Grandpa Dave. But he was announcing all these people that have been hired. But I think all the people that are being hired so they can restructure their contracts. So when the time comes to release them, maybe they bring you in with a month contract, then release you. But the AAA contracts are apparently atrocious. Like, are just absolutely insane and would never stand up to American law. So.
Right, but I do believe, like, the list is on it. It's the show notes, you get them for $1. The names are all on there. I'm not even going to butcher half of them trying to. The ones I'm really like, okay, I am going to butcher some of them, but not all of them. La Parca, Hijo del Vikingo, Hijo del Dr. Wagner, and Alberto Del Rio. Okay, El Patron, whatever he's calling himself these days. Okay, those 4 aren't signed to be let go. I don't believe so.
Well, they've built the entire storyline around Alberto in AAA. So imagine having this massive arc based on a guy, and then somebody else buying you and tell you got to fire the guy.
I think, well, again, because these guys could get out of these deals, I think, again, there's a slew of other names there. Those 4 particular, you're not buying AAA because, by the way, Alberto's the champion, like the big champion. So you probably want to put him under a contract that he can't get out of.
Yes.
Wagner, Vikingo, and La Parca, same exact scenario. Like, hey, if we're going to invest into this, we're going to lock these guys up, and we're going to, make sure we're at least going to hold on to those.
Yeah.
The rest of them, we'll figure it out. But there's been a story that, hey, they may only keep a base of about 12 to 15 wrestlers on the permanent roster. By the way, they're going to cast a wider net. There's a rumor that they're probably going to look at some of the CMLL talent and see if they can grab the ones they want from over there, bring them in, pepper in some guys, which we'll get to here in a second, where they're already going to do that. And that comes up in Triplemania, right?
Yeah. The Triplemania card looks great. Triplemania Regia. They got JBL. They got TNA talent. They got Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo from WWE, which have been focused. They've been getting pops on almost every TV show. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this is they got an AEW show a couple of days later that sold out. They got this Worlds Collide. Then after that, they got Triplemania coming up, Regia, which is. I'm so confused. I know nothing about the culture of Mexican wrestling or lucha wrestling.
Dive into the lucha, especially the AAA stuff, the Triplemania. I think it's a huge thing to look at. I mean, and like I said, with the stuff they're bringing in, like Garza and Carrillo, like they have history in AAA. They have the history there, and I think eventually, the smart play is you're going to see Phoenix, a Penta, Dominik, even Garza, all the Vega, and I think you start the reason they don't have to go as deep with the roster is they've got all these guys and ladies on the roster already that they could just pepper in down there to spice up shows. Probably a pretty good idea in my opinion.
To give the American fans a reason to watch it. But that's why I'm listening to every time.
I don't think that matters at all. I don't think they're going to care if Americans watch this show.
I hear they're going to do some of the shows. They're going to have English commentary, so you know what's going on better. But the culture is it's more of a culture icon and phenomenon than it is here.
The largest mistake they can make is try to Americanize that product.
That's what Conan is saying, and
if they try to Americanize that product, it's going to fail. And that's it. That's why I said, when I said you're sending now, can you send a gringo down there? 100%. Like you can send, a Seth Rollins heel, a Miz heel to go down there. But by the way, I want to bring up something that came to my attention, and as I was, there's a gringo down there who has ties to WWE, who's already in AAA. His name's Sam Adonis. Do you know who his brother is? Corey Graves.
Oh.
Sam Adonis is already in AAA. By the way, to the point, he went through the dojo there. He's bilingual. He could fully speak English, fully speak, Spanish. So you have a guy that's already on the roster who has a WWE connection, who's bilingual, is a great heel for that such purpose because he can literally get into the ring and cut a promo in Spanish, then say some of it in English just to tick the audience off. Why is he not on this list?
I didn't even think about that. I didn't even know about that to think about it, to be honest with you. That's wild.
Now, do I think he gets the deal? Yes, I do. I think it probably easily happens. By the way, shocking revelation, this is one I threw out there. If Corey Graves steps in a ring, I wouldn't be shocked if it was there.
I've heard things that he wants to go back into the ring, but that's all, the rumors are crazy, man. But
can you imagine, though, he goes back into the ring with his brother as the heel down at a Triplemania or show or something like that? Because Sam Adonis is over as Rover down there as a heel, by the way. So that would not shock me in the absolute least. So, but again, the big story of the AAA is nobody knows what to believe out of any of these details because everything is just coming out of a void of just misinformation at this point. So,
I would trust my mother more than I would Dave Meltzer on this commentary, and my mother hasn't watched a day of wrestling in her life. It's just so crazy, and it's a cultural thing. I think we need someone who understands, not from a commentator or a newsletter guy. We need someone on the ground there that does this, and on top of it, is this going to be someplace some of the releases could go, Nick?
Could be. That was obviously the big news. We talked about that. We were at a One Fall show on Friday when they all kind of started just kind of trickling in through social media. Guys, the list is there. We're not going to go through it line by line and tell you who got cut. At this point, if you don't know who cut, show notes are $1. I mean, you could on the Patreon page. You get
and they're more reliable. We research these things.
So, look, were there some big shocking ones? I'll ask you, were you shocked by anybody on the list?
Yes.
Who?
Gigi Dolan, Jakar Jackson, to a lesser extent, Corey Jade.
So, pause. So, just NXT names.
Yeah. Because, Strowman didn't get that pop at WrestleMania, and they used him to put Fatu over. And he's been released before.
Strowman wasn't even on Mania.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah. He didn't get his Mania show. He put
Did you
everybody
believe that
over.
story that came out about him talking to Paul Heyman before WrestleMania?
I believe that story. I don't know if it's a logical story. Let me rephrase that. It's enough sound-wise to believe it. But I don't know. And then now he's saying he's got a 15% paralysis in one of his legs. And then I hear the doors are open.
Yeah, it's open and everything, but they're saying that he never recovered from the hamstring injury. Right? He hasn't been the same since. And that's got some truth to that. I wasn't shocked by Chance and Carter at all. No. I don't mean to knock them.
They've never known what to do with them. They were much better as NXT talent.
Here's the crazy part is, how about this? Here's Nick's hot take for the show. I am never shocked once by an NXT release. Not at all.
I didn't think I would be. I didn't think it would be, but they've been sending these people over to TNT. Well, that's not a good reason.
TNA.
Or TNA. Yeah. Because Gigi Dolan, Jakar Jackson, Corey Jade, they've been doing whatever they needed to do.
So I'm gonna pause there because I want to ask you. You brought up TNA, and I want to ask you this question. You talked about them all sending them over to TNA. They've appeared on TNA. Is it because they didn't have anything for them? So they were going to allow them to go over there and maybe, or, hey, TNA, we're going to let these people go. We're going to let you see them in action, up close and personal. And if you're interested, they're going to be free here shortly. So just kind of figure that part out. So go here's a peek at them.
There's your TNA auction or edition, and look what TNA did for Naomi. Okay, Naomi had one of the most important matches on WrestleMania, even though there wasn't a title on it. And this is after her time in TNA, after being released or leaving, whichever the take is on that whole thing. But
do you think that's my question to you was, do you believe this is part of the perks of the partnership with TNA and WWE? It's like, hey, they essentially gave them a sneak peek into the, like, hey, if you want to see them in your ring, in front of think about that, in front of your crowd, you could see what kind of reaction they're going to get before we ever even release them, and you can decide if you're interested in them or not.
And how many of these people are worth of Jordan Grace? Signed over from TNA.
But here's the thing. TNA was never going to be able to sign. Jordan Grace was ready. WWE was going to offer her enough money. That's the trade-off people don't get. I think the reverse doesn't matter because WWE's thing is if we want them, we're getting them. What we're trying to do is at least make this a two-way relationship and say, if we just let people go, then you have to think about that. TNA has to decide, is it worth the risk to signing them and bringing them in? But if you've already lent them to them, they've seen them in front of their crowd, they've seen them work some of their talents, they've been in their you've seen them up close and personal, you're kind of like, hey, our crowd reacts to them, let's sign them.
And maybe this is the Joe Hendry thing. Maybe you get a test of Joe Hendry. We'll let you to test drive them. Okay, remember, they let them small test drives with Jordan Grace.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you get an extra long test drive with Joe Hendry if you'll release these people and let us know head up.
Now, I'm sure there would have to be sworn secrecy deals of all kinds, but I'd imagine old Mr. Tommy Dreamer could keep a secret if he says, hey, this list of NXT people, they're going to be let go next week.
Yeah.
Are you interested in any of them? Because you can kind of get prepared, get ready to make, you can, that kind of, I do
TNA
think
just released Savannah
the week
Evans.
before. Think about that. Because my question is, did they make those releases knowing these were coming? So it's free up what money we want to free up, so we know
cap space.
I mean, I'm not saying it's cap space, but essentially, if they're but here's the other problem. I know there's a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of people out there really, really complaining about people getting let go. It sucks. I'm going to start there. I get it. It sucks that these people got released. However, at this point, we are fully aware that's the wrestling business. Look, quietly, 2 people were released from AEW this past week. Now, not many people were like in the mass. I get it. Wrestling people know who they were, but the mass people did not know who they were.
Yes.
But there was no stink about it. All of this stems from, I remember the week prior, there was a big hoopla about, I thought y'all didn't put people on the bench because Nick Khan was like, we don't bench people. We don't sign people and put them on the bench.
Yes.
Well, here's your answer, folks. They clearly didn't have anything for all of these people, and they just said, go. It's going to be a combination of, and this is not going to be the end of it, by the way. With TKO at the head of the table running this company, if they don't have anything for you and they can't justify your payroll, you're gone.
Well, if somebody was, one of the older guys was saying, well, that's not the older former WE employees was like, it's not a family business anymore. No, it's not a family business anymore. This is a national corporation. And I don't know if you've ever worked for a national corporation, but right now most national retail corporations are closing stores left and right, downsizing, getting things better. WE is profitable, and they're trimming things out. You saw our boy Sean Legacy on NXT last night. He was getting his test to see if he's worthy of an NXT contract, and there was about to be a spot for him. And there's three major wrestling companies in the country now, and the world wrestling is profiting right now. Maybe it's just a gimmick switch. Maybe you run your gimmick somewhere else. Maybe you get out of wrestling. One of the girls on the NXT roster retired, Danny Palmer.
Yeah, listen, across the board, they're all, like you said, Naomi revived her career after being gone. Matt Cardona I know, look, Shotzi, we're big fans of Shotzi. We think she could make a living on the indies, if she wanted to. I just think that's my opinion. Call it whatever. Strowman, I mean, could you imagine him in a TNA locker room? He's literally, talk about being a monster among men at that point. No doubt. By the way, don't go to AEW. I just can't even remotely imagine.
No, he would not be a good fit at all, based on smart fan type stuff. I mean, you can't get blood out of a turnip with some of these people, or out of TNA apparently.
So that's part of the thing. Another thing that came out this week is apparently TNA kind of internally sent out an announcement that blading, whatever, kind of is going to be frowned upon going forward. And that's kind of listen, recently they've had some bloody ones, so I get it. So maybe that's where it came from. Maybe they got pushed back, because at the end of the day, I wanted to ask two questions. I'll start with the first one, then we'll move to the next one. Is it basically TV and advertisers at this point, you think, that are like putting the kibosh on this?
I would think so.
You think?
Or what?
Or is just blood played out in general?
Well, in a world where we have to do everything to the next level, we have to take everything. If we're going to bleed, we got to bleed a crimson mask. Or if we're going to jump off something, we got to jump off the highest thing because everyone's done it before. Maybe we could just try less for a while. See how it goes. Maybe I honestly don't want to see blood all the time. I want to see blood when it's a blood type feud, or I want to see blood when it's a hardcore. There's a time and place for everything in wrestling. Not a deathmatch fan, but also not a totally never blood fan.
Yeah, no, if it's like the feud builds to the point that it's Hell in a Cell, all right, we're probably going to see a little bit of blood, right? I get that. That makes sense. But I'm like you. If we can go months without seeing blood, when we finally see it, it matters.
Yes.
And when I mean months, not like months, like as in.
I was sure there would have been color on WrestleMania. When you think about it, there was no color on WrestleMania, even with the intensity of those feuds.
That goes back to that TV and advertising and just if in their belief, and I don't know we haven't seen those final numbers. If your belief would be typically more people watch WrestleMania than anything else, that would be the last place that you would want blood. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, and maybe you need to get blood out to be a marketable TV product. Maybe that's what's holding TNA. When you look at it, why not remove all the barriers that hold you back?
Yeah,
from national credit, that new TV deal you want.
Look, they just had the big Rebellion pay-per-view. A lot of people saying it's probably the best pay-per-view they've had all year, probably in a long time for that matter, because it was it literally was a buffet, had a little bit of everything for everybody, on and on and on. And they packed the house out there in California. They're doing really good numbers at some of their, at their pay-per-views and stuff like that. I think the only way they continue to grow is a TV deal. Look, JBL on his podcast was like, hey, I think they're going to get one. I think they're literally growing. They've been around. He's been around that locker room, by the way, for a minute too. So
yeah. Hey, and he's been in Mexico too. So he's got like that worldwide perspective of where things are. WWE, TNA, Mexico. He's traveled the world. Maybe he's got a point here. Maybe they're ready to go to the next level.
I think just the storylines, the characters, the people they got. I think it helps them tremendously with the partnership they have with the WWE right now, because they're getting that exposure. They can think about this. Hey, who's the face of your company? Joe Hendry. You might have seen him at WrestleMania. Wait, what? You see? I mean, that kind of stuff will, I think, help them. And I think if they can make that jump to the TV deal, like a better TV deal than what they have now. Because here's the thing. We're finding out, as much as everybody likes to just talk about how, this company's ratings and that company's ratings and on and on and on, live content tends to draw better and more consistently. I think that's a huge thing people overlook is the consistency. Like, hey, this show over here draws 3 million viewers, and but they only have 12 episodes a year.
Yeah.
So you're like, hey, you get 4, 5, 6 million people watch your channel, 12 weeks. What about the other?
Yeah. I'm binge watching a show. I'm binge watching Andor right now. I binge watched the first series. Now I'm like trickling. Every week you get 3 episodes. But I'm not going to remember all of this stuff till next year. That's not a consistent level of Andor.
My point, though, is if you were watching something on television, like a television show that actually matters as far as the ratings go and the viewership matters. If you're watching, it doesn't matter if 5 million people watch your show for 12 weeks.
Yes.
If you can get 500,000 people to watch it 52 weeks, those people then can turn around and sell that. Hey, we can get you half. I get it. It's not 5, but it's every week for 52 weeks. We can tell you we're going to be right here. Like that. So when, advertise that, works on a pretty consistent basis. And then that's just in general, that's why like sports is what it is and et cetera.
Because they know anytime you turn on an NFL football game, you're going to have an X number of people watching it regardless of what it is. Yeah. And this is that thing. NXT, their numbers on the CW are the best thing CW has by far. You think they're not going to want more money next year for that? For basically carrying the entire network?
Oh, they're stuck in that deal for a while. They're in there for a few. But here's the thing.
There's going to be a renegotiation sometime.
The only way that thing renegotiates is if CW tries to lock them in longer. Yeah. And here's my thing. I think CW probably already realizes they've lost it. So if they know if they know they're not going to be able to afford to re-up it, I wouldn't even attempt to pay them an extra dime and make them ride that contract out at the pay they're paying them.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Think about it. If they're like, hey, wait, so you're doing if they're drawing currently what AEW is getting on a weekly basis, which they're doing or better on average, that means WWE next negotiating time gets to point to the AEW deal and go, hey, we're beating that company and that's what they get for their show. That's kind of our measuring stick of what we want, at least that one number, right?
Yeah.
So I think CW knows that the writing's on the wall and they know they're not getting that show.
Now, let me ask you a question. Somebody that's been on CW a lot lately. Joe Hendry. Where in the TNA legend does Joe Hendry fit? On par with AJ Styles?
No.
But he's the one that is bringing TNA into the WWE marketplace.
The only way he reaches, look, AJ was there for so long. Joe Hendry would have to stay, and just so people are aware, he ain't staying long enough to be that guy.
But AJ Styles wasn't on Mania when he was a TNA guy.
But he was still no.
Yes, his work is phenomenal. I'm not arguing that. But with Joe Hendry mainstreaming TNA more, is there a chance that his legend will exceed AJ's?
No. AJ.
I mean, I'm sure there's people that have opinions.
To this day, when people look at me personally, by the way, tapthatpod@gmail.com, send the hate mail here. I think the pyramid of TNA starts at the top. It's Jeff Jarrett because it was Jeff's company forever. I mean, right? So it's Jeff's at the top, and I think AJ's right there behind it. Now you can start getting into Samoa Joe and insert this guy, that guy. I think it's Jeff Jarrett and AJ Styles, and then everybody else, kind of is fighting for underneath that puzzle. That's just my take, but anyway.
Hands to side to side.
I'm not saying he's not currently the guy. He is, but beyond long term, no. Other big news, by the way, breaking out this week. I really kind of thought this was interesting. Well, look, a while back, AEW did a residency in Texas. It apparently saved them tons of money. It worked out in the long run. I know the later dates kind of got a little shaky on attendance or whatever. But the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, the home, the old home of ECW, I think that's a different vibe. That whole building's going to be wild and crazy.
It's like a chat. It's like one of the churches of wrestling. It's one of the most historical places in professional wrestling. There's a big market in Philadelphia for professional wrestling. They had WrestleMania 40 there. I think this is a good idea. Why? I don't know what this arena holds. What does it hold? 3,000, 2,000?
It's probably how it's set up. Just depends on how they set it up. But
so if they sell that arena out at a lower seat capacity every week, instead of going on the road, town to town every week, changing cities, and filling up half of a 15,000 seat arena, or a third of a 15,000 seat arena, what's better?
It says the arena. Now, this is old. Wikipedia states that it's approximately 1,060, but another thing says it's 1,300. So it ain't much, if that makes any sense. Here you go. 1,300. So they're saying with the AEW stage that they maybe are going to be a little bit around 1,000 people in there. So 1,000 to 1,300. We'll let the math run its course or whatever. But they're going to run Dynamite, Collision, Dynamite, Death Before Dishonor, Collision, Dynamite, and then Collision again, all the way from August 27th through September of the 11th. It's kind of going to be like they like I said, they did this in Texas, seemed to work out for budget purposes and all of that kind of stuff. I'm all for it, but I think it's going to be quite easy if that's the crowd size we're looking at. I think they sell out every show super fast. I don't even think it's going to be an issue.
I'd love to be up there for Death Before Dishonor. I would love to catch an old Ring of Honor show in the 2,300. But this may be what we see for smaller companies. TNA's done it recently when they set up in Orlando for a while. You've got NXT does it. They stay down there at their venue and then travel and do okay when they travel. Maybe that's the model. 1,000 people twice a week shouldn't be that hard.
Not with that rabid fan base. That rabid fan base, they should be well exceeding it of it. Hopefully it works out for them. Hopefully, the good business there. And I will tell you this, I think it's going to be great for TV.
Well, this is the kind of venue people will travel to see from around the country. Nobody was going to go, was it Arlington? Out of the blue, just ride to Arlington for wrestling.
Arlington, I was like, okay, you might go there for the Cowboy Stadium tour and all that kind of stuff, close, nearby, whatever. Yeah. But yes, wrestling fans, this will be one that I think that they will have a lot of people coming in and trying to do. That would be a really good road trip, because here's the thing.
I know you're the road trip king.
Yeah. The Northeast, it's pretty compact when you think of it, because we're used to being down here, and it's like, oh, well, we want to go to South Georgia. It's a 4-hour drive. Well, from Philly, 4 hours, you can be in multiple states because it's so compact in the corner. So, it should be a blast, man. But time will tell. Again, Backlash coming up this weekend. I hate to say it, I don't think we're super jacked about it.
What indie show? We got an indie show we're planning on going to that night?
Well, you can't do Friday. Friday, I was planning Southern Honor. Saturday, I'm leaning Wrestlemania.
I'd love to get to go to Wrestlemania if you're thinking about going. I would love to, and I don't have anything planned so far, because after a Friday I don't get to go to wrestling. I usually get a good. God, I sound like such a whip bastard, but but yes.
But I will tell you this, Myron. If we go to wrestling, do you know where they're supposed to go to? Patreon.com/tapped-out-pod. That's the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight. It's exclusive only on our Patreon page, and we would be recapping it on that show. And guess what, Myron?
What?
You're filling in for Heath next week.
I'll be filling in
on
for
the Tapped In show and on the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight. So again, that will be at patreon.com/tapped-out-pod. Like I said, you get the shows early, you get the collectible stuff exclusive, but again, the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight only available there. It's where we talk about the shows from the past weekend, the shows that are coming up the next weekend, and next week Myron will be sitting in. He's celebrating 50 again. Apparently, he's going out. I'm gonna off the air tell you what he's gonna do for his birthday. He told me something off the air, and I don't know if I'm like it's nothing bad, folks. If anybody's listening, but you'll get a kick out of it. You will get a kick out of it.
He's just one guy I can appreciate and say yes, he would not be doing anything horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, so we'll probably watch Backlash Sunday. At some point because I've got.
I watch it Sunday when I'm kind of.
I've got plans on Sunday, so I have no idea when I'll get to it. Probably Sunday night. Who knows, or whatever. But look, it's kind of an off week in wrestling. We hope you enjoyed the show as usual. But next week we'll be back. We're contemplating maybe the draft next week. We'll see if we can get it all together and do the draft next week. Let us know, tappedoutpod@gmail.com. If you think the draft is what we should do, or we might be due for, because we're due for a real wrestling episode. We are due for one of those. That was what was supposed to be this week as well.
On top of it all, we need to tease maybe. Who would you pick as your number one pick for the women's? You don't have to answer, but folks, think about that. Who would you pick if you had your first round draft pick for a female wrestler in WWE right now? You pick Charlotte. You pick Liv Morgan. Rhea Ripley.
Well, Liv's gone for a while, remember?
Yeah, but I'd still want. I would rather have 6 months of Liv Morgan than 2 years.
Well, I agree with you, but is she draftable if you know she's gone for 6 months?
Look, I'll get her on free agency. I'll catch her on waivers.
Yeah, catch her with. Throw money at her.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, man, that's everything I've got for this week. Hopefully we'll, obviously get out to some shows this weekend. And maybe we'll catch this, and we might recap if Backlash is worth a shit. Maybe we'll actually give it a review next week. Time will tell. I'm sure there's something that's going to happen, but that we'll be talking about next week. But that's all I've got, man. You got anything else before we get out of here?
No, we love you and we need you, folks. So I'm glad we got to do this again. Show worked out pretty well for a show we didn't have any content for.
Feels that way, but what's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
Time to tap out.